Okay, so Unit 7.1 review. Question 1. What political movement emerged after 1848? That would be the Age of Realpolitik. Question 2. What is the ideal that you can accomplish your political means practically rather than through idealism? That would also be Realpolitik. Who did Russia fight in the Crimean War? They pretty much had to face off against everyone. First the Turks, then Britain and France will join the Turks. This would be a great all except, so you would of course know the Turks, Britain, and France would be the all, and then an except would maybe be to throw some other options in there. So why did Britain and France side with the Turks against Russia in the Crimean War? Britain and France wanted to prevent Russia from creeping westward. Question 5. Who was the British nurse who made a name for herself as a pioneer in modern nursing during the Crimean War? That would be Florence Nightingale. So question 6. What event caused Russia to realize that they needed to change or modernize or be left behind? That would be Russia's loss in the Crimean War will make them stop and reevaluate and start to modernize. Question 7. Why did people like President Louis Napoleon enough that he won the election? The answer would be all of these. He was for law and order. He opposed socialism and radicalism at first. He favored the church, army, and property owners at first. And he had name recognition of being the nephew of Napoleon. Question number 8. What was Louis Napoleon president of? He was president of the Second French Republic, which of course we know will fall with his capture in the Franco-Prussian War. Question 9. What did the Fallot laws do? They returned control of the education to the Catholic Church under the presidency of Louis Napoleon for some time during his conservative phase. Question 10. Who did Louis Napoleon become? He became Emperor Napoleon III. What was the only country in the world to have universal male suffrage in 1852? Question number 11. That would be France. What kind of empire did Napoleon III try to create through his reforms? So you need to pay attention to his title at this point. He is Emperor Napoleon III at this point. So what kind of empire did he at this point try to create through his reforms? This is question number 12. So at this point it would be liberal. Question 13, what did Napoleon III do economically? He directed the government to stimulate the economy of the railroad and investments in the economy. So his biggest strength being economic reforms as emperor. Biggest weakness, foreign policy. Question 14, who gave us the syllabus of errors? That would be Pope Pius IX. Question 15, why did he issue the syllabus? He issued it because Napoleon III took control of education away from the church and gave it to the government during his liberal reforms. Also remember we had those things going on in Italy with the unification of Italy at that time as well. Question 16, what did the syllabus of errors condemn? That would be liberalism. It condemned liberalism and any movement that was in favor. Remember, that's the list of if you believe this, you were wrong. If you believe that, you were wrong. Question 17, what led to the collapse of the Second French Republic? That would be the capture of Napoleon III and the Franco-Prussian War. Who was the king of Sardinia-Piedmont during the Italian unification movement? Number 18. That would be King Victor Emmanuel. Question 19, what state led the Italian unification movement? That is Sardinia, Piedmont. So question 20, who led the unification movement for Sardinia, Piedmont? That would be Cavour. Question 21, who was the godfather of the Italian unification movement for his work before 1848? So who did Cavour replace? That would be Mazzini. Question 23, why did Cavour join Britain and France in the Crimean War? He wanted to bring the issue of Italian unification to the peace conference and build some allies for his step-by-step plan. Question 24, which country stood the most in the way of a unified Italy? That would be Austria. Question 25. Whose help did Cavour seek to support a Sardinian war against Austria? That would be Napoleon III of France. What area did Garibaldi liberate? That would be southern Italy or the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies, going up the boot. What group invaded southern Italy with Garibaldi? That would be his red shirts. Remember, his 1,000 red shirts are invading from the south, while Cavour is tackling the north, going downwards. Who became king of a unified Italy in 1861? That would be, of course, Victor Emmanuel, because he was leading the charge for Sardinia Piedmont with Cavour as his right-hand man. What two areas were not included in the unified Italy in 1861? This is where that map breaks into 3 parts. So look back in your notes. What two areas were not included in the United Italy in 1861? They would be the last 2 to be brought in. So that would be Venice and Rome, which we know that we will get Venice then added as we see the unification of Germany. So what was added to Italy in 1866? We know that that is Venice, added with the German unification as the spoils of war that we just listened to in the last lecture video. What was added to complete the unification of Italy in 1871? So what completes it in the same year that Germany will unify? We have 1 spot left. That should be easy. Last map of Italy. That is Rome. Who had been an obstacle to unification until 1871? That is the Pope. Remember, he is in the Papal States in the middle, holding things up. What was the name of the German customs union that provided early economic unity among many German states? We reviewed that with our video you're watching this weekend. The Zollverein, much like the European Union. Economic union first, then political. Which big German state was excluded from the Zollverein? And so this is that plan that's going to be successful. So what is left out to keep out of, Otto von Bismarck wants to keep out of the way of the Hohenzollern unification of Germany? That would be Austria. What is the name of the plan that planned to unify Germany without Austria? So the plan that was successful? That is the Klein-Dutch plan. Klein-Dutch, our second plan. Gross-Dutch failed. Who led the drive for German unification? So in Italy we had seen that it was Cavour and King Victor Emmanuel and Garibaldi. In Germany it is the one and only OVB, Otto von Bismarck. Which German state led the drive for German unification? So which German state takes the lead after in 1815? That is Prussia, leaving Austria behind. Who said the great questions of the day will be solved by blood and iron? You should know this by the use of the word iron. As our Iron Chancellor, Otto von Bismarck. Who was known as the Iron Chancellor? I kind of just gave that one away. A lot about OVB, Otto von Bismarck. What was the order of the big events that led to German unification between 1863 and 1871?
Might as well do Stephanie.
So don't mind the dogs and my husband. The order of events would be the Franco-Danish or the Prussian-Danish War, the Austro-Prussian War, and then the Northern German Confederation. So, what did Prussia and Austria together fight to get from Denmark that started this whole chain of events? That'd be Schleswig-Holstein, the northern part there. What will Prussia have sole control of in 1866 after the Austro-Prussian War? Sole control of in 1866 after the Austro-Prussian War. So they shared Holstein and Schleswig first. What do they have sole custody of then after the Austro-Prussian War? That is Schleswig and Holstein after the war. Solves that tension. So what was formed when the German Confederation was dissolved at the conclusion of the Austro-Prussian War? So think about your timeline. German Confederation, end of Austro-Prussian War. That'd be the North German Confederation. What did Bismarck create to bring the liberals to his side? A Reichstag with 2 houses, upper and lower. What is the Prussian-German parliament called? So, kind of answered those questions backwards for you. The Reichstag. What did Bismarck use to provoke a war with France? So, what is the stick he used to poke France with? It should be the name of a telegram, so keep that in mind. The Ems Dispatch. Poking France. What kind of peace did Bismarck impose upon the French in the Treaty of Frankfurt after the Franco-Prussian War? So if he was nice to the Austrians, how did he treat the French? Harsh peace. Kind of flipped through there really fast, sorry. How did the Franco-Prussian War impact France throughout Europe? What was the impact on Europe? The French influence in Europe will decline. They had been holding back Germany for good reason, but now they will be punished, and so their influence is going to decline. What event completed the process of German unification? So what was the final event? The Franco-Prussian War. So this would be the final event if you were to do a timeline of German unification. What event encouraged German nationalism to the point that even the southern German states wanted to join in a unified Germany? So what was the point in Bismarck's plan that caused the southern states to want to join? The Franco-Prussian War. Poking France with that stick, the Ems Dispatch. What event led to the French to create the Third French Republic after Napoleon III was captured? So what event? The Franco-Prussian War again. So it being that capstone of German unification is going to have a lot of effects. Just remember that. What effect did a newly unified Germany have on Europe? So what are the effects of a newly unified Germany? It upset the balance of power that they have been trying to maintain for so long. What did all of Bismarck's maneuvering to create a unified Germany prove? It proved that his blood and iron policy works, that you must have might. Sorry, that went quick there. What was the compromise bargain between the Hungarians and the Austrians called that created the Austrian-Hungarian Empire? So the last part of our lecture 7.1. The Ausgleich, or compromise. Ausgleich, or compromise. What was another name for the Austro-Hungarian Empire at this time? Dual monarchy. Keep that term in mind, dual monarchy. What is another name for the Hungarians at this time? That is the Magyars. Nationalism tended to unite and strengthen most states. What state obviously is divided because of nationalism? What state is obviously divided because of nationalism? Austria, Hungary. One of our only divided by nationalism instead of spurred forth because of it. All right, there's your review. Posted on here. So if you get into this and you didn't know some of them, come back and make sure you watch the lecture video and look back at your notes. Maybe make some marks next to where you found the answers to these questions. Sorry if there's any interruptions in there that I didn't go back and edit out. Kind of a tough morning with the dogs and housework and stuff like that. So hopefully that will help you out, and I will see you in class this week. Be safe in the snow.